Many things have changed since most of us graduated from the Academy. Societal shifts and constantly evolving global threats have had an impact on the training and preparations required of future warfighters. In our third interview segment, we further explore today's cadet experience with Superintendent Lieutenant General Richard Clark. Part of that conversation involves delving into the significant drop in applications for admissions to USAFA over the past year and what may have precipitated those declining numbers. I'm Heather Ubaraga, formerly Heather Healy, class of 1999, your host during these conversations, which are brought to you by the Association of Graduates and the Air Force Academy Foundation. So, General Clark, this third section is on the cadet experience, and I'm actually really curious to know. I was telling some folks earlier today that I haven't set foot in the cadet area since the 2nd of June, 1999.
What?
That's true.
Where have you been?
Doing stuff.
Well, you're here now.
I'm here now.
Good. It's good.
So I'm actually really curious to know what a day in the life of a USAFA cadet looks like these days.
Yeah, it's busy, and I think generally it probably looks a lot like you remember it, with tweaks, I'll say. You know, things change, society changes, the world changes, the military changes, but generally the day in a life of cadet is jam-packed with from start to finish. And so they still, they get up in the morning, they're in their squadron time, they eat breakfast, but it is optional, breakfast is, and then they hit class, and they're in class pretty much all day. They still march to new meal formation. They come back, go to class after lunch, and then it's military training time, it's practice for intercollegiate athletics, it's EI, extra instruction, it's all of those things that a cadet needs to do after school. And then there's a little bit of time in there for sort of other activities, other things of their choosing, and then it's academic call to quarters until TAPS, and so they're busy studying. So I think the general schedule is very much like we lived with, and I was 1986, so significantly before your time, but I think it's pretty similar. I will say though that we are focusing with the Commandant and I a lot on warfighting and putting in those opportunities to develop a warfighting mindset. We're bringing back a lot of the traditions that we knew before. Some of those things kind of come and go depending on the administration here at the Academy, but we really want to see our cadets have that warfighter mindset. And oftentimes during the day, we'll have a warfighter series of speakers that come in, people from out in the field, people that are working in combatant commands or squadron commanders, or people that have combat experience that can come and talk to our cadets to help them make that connection of why they're doing what they're doing and what it will lead to down the road. So we put those opportunities in as well as other training opportunities. Some of the things that we've talked about earlier, honor education, SAPR, sexual assault prevention education, are also there, but predominantly it's about leadership development, it's about a warfighting culture, and those are the things that are really important to us. The summers are very much the same, as you probably remember, 3 periods, lots of different opportunities. Operation Air Force, where they go to an operational base. We brought back combat survival training, which we used to know as SERE. It's the same program, less resistance and escape. So the POW camp is not a part of that, but we put them out into the wilderness, and they have to survive for about 10 days. Everybody loses about 12 to 14 pounds. They eat ants and bugs. And basic cadet training is still very much the same with the assault course, the obstacle course, marksmanship, all those things as we're bringing them in. And that really the best part of basic cadet training is the cadets' opportunity to lead that. So a day in the life of a cadet during the school year looks very much like you remember, and a day in the life of a cadet in the summer is, it just depends on what program they're involved in and what activities that they're taking on. But we are focused on that leadership development. And the last thing I'll say is academics, I will say, are much more difficult than they were when I was here. We are a STEM-focused organization, university. More than half of our cadets are STEM majors, but we also have the liberal arts majors as well. But most of them are in the STEM, but the core is heavily focused on STEM. So there's a robust, I think, drive to continue to make our academics preeminent in the country. And our dean is doing a fantastic job of doing that, but also pulling in those warfighter elements even into the academics so that our cadets understand how their major applies to warfighting.
I mean, it's a very unique, very intense college experience. And I know that it was for me, it was for you, it still is. Admissions dropped last year.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
So we're not exactly sure why, but here's a couple things that we do know. Admissions has dropped across the board for universities across our country. Applications or recruiting in the military writ large has dropped as well. So ours dropped too. Now, why? Why did it happen? One thing that we do know is that COVID had a significant impact on us. We our sort of 10-year average going into COVID what was pretty steady, but then the year of COVID, it actually went up. And the reason for that was because we did not require standardized tests because so many people couldn't get to a location to take their standardized test. So our applications actually went up for 1 year. But then the next year, they took a huge dip. So we went from around 10,200 or 300 up to about 11,200 or 300, and then we dropped significantly to about 8,300. And we think that drop down to 8,300 was primarily because we couldn't get out in the field. We couldn't send our admissions counselors out to talk to people. We couldn't go to service academy fairs, academy days. We couldn't go to the recruiting fairs that are available to us and actually talk to our prospective cadets. So that had a big impact on who we could bring in and actually encouraging people to come and join our school. So we think that had something to do with it, but we don't know that was the only cause for this drop. Now, what I will say is this year, we're already above where we were last year. We're already back to our sort of 5-year average, I think, of numbers of applications that we've had. So that kind of leads me to believe that maybe it was a COVID phenomenon, but we can't draw that conclusion just yet. We have to see where we end up at the end of the year, if we actually get back actually to where we were for a 5-year average, but I think COVID had something to do with that. We're putting effort into this though to make sure that we do get our people back out into the field to do the kind of recruiting that we expect of them. And I am hopeful that we'll be back to where we need to be as an academy.
It's hard to fully appreciate the impact of COVID. I mean, I think we'll be studying this for years to come. And certainly I'm, a mom of 3 young children, and I feel like from their educational perspective, it's had an impact and it's delayed certain things. It's created new opportunities in other places. So that seems very reasonable. One of the things I wanted to ask you about specifically with regard to the entire leadership experience or leadership development experience here at USAFA was the role of athletics. It might surprise you to know that I wasn't a recruited athlete, but I didn't come here and I didn't play on any sports. But I think I was a little bit envious of the athletic experience at USAFA because there are, and I see it more now as a mom again with my children, so many leadership lessons to be learned on a sports team. And I think that sports are really important to developing leadership skills and collaboration skills and knowing when to lead and when to follow and knowing how to put in the hard work. What do you see the role of athletics being here at USAFA these days?
Yeah, that's a great question, Heather. I was a recruited athlete. I played football here for 4 years. And I guess I could sum it up best with the MacArthur quote: "On the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other fields, on other days will bear the fruits of victory." I think that our athletes get a different kind of character development. They get a different kind of, I'll say, warfighter training because of the things that they have to do to be able to compete as Division I athletes. It is not an easy road for them. And sometimes people go, well, you're doing something you love. I mean, you're going down to the field, it's something you love. And it is. It's something that our athletes, our Division I, our intercollegiate athletes, they love, they're passionate about, but that doesn't make it easy. They still go down, they put hours of time every day into preparing to compete. And they still have to meet the academic requirements, much of the military requirements. Sometimes there has to be some relief because something in the schedule has to give in order for them to be able to compete. But I believe that it's just a different form of leadership development here at the Academy. And we have a lot of ways that we develop leaders. It's all about the experience, and it's all about ensuring that the cadets own their role as leaders and that they own their development of leaders of character. So I think it has a significant role for us, for our athletes, but we also have our airfield. And some people, I would say that the airfield is another form of leadership development. To train people and to jump out of an airplane and to encourage another person to do that with a parachute on takes a significant amount of leadership, a significant amount of character, but it's just another way of developing leaders of character. We have cadets in the Honor Guard. They're out there practicing every day. I look out my window and I see them, and they are going through some significant drills, push-ups, physical activity. It's another form of leadership development. So what we can't do is expect that every one of our cadets is going to go through the same form of development. We can't expect that. But what we can expect is that in the end, that they're all leaders of character, ready to go out and lead and win our wars. And intercollegiate athletics is just another form of that. We do have 27 intercollegiate sports here. It is very competitive, and it is a demanding schedule. So when people think about our athletes and they might think that they're taking an easier road, I would say it's not an easier road, it's just a different road. It's just a different path that they're taking to develop as leaders. Just like our airmanship programs, just like our Honor Guard cadets, just like our cadets who are getting that training through their squadron leadership. I see them out on runs, they're doing rucksack runs, they're marching, they're getting knowledge training, they're doing all these other things. That's another path for leadership development. And we here at USAFA, we can't be so narrowly focused on how it happens. We just have to make sure that it's effective and that what we do actually meets the end state that our country expects of us, to have leaders of character ready to go win wars.
So we've talked about the importance of athletics and other opportunities as well for leadership development, but I've been hearing some interesting things about what USAFA is doing as a research development. Expand on that, help us understand what you're doing there.
Yeah, there's an enormous amount of research opportunities for our cadets. In fact, we are the #1 funded undergraduate research institution in the country. And our cadets take full advantage of that. During the summers, they're able to partner with industry, with other academic institutions to further our research. During the school year, they're involved not just through their classes, but through extracurricular activities. We talked about, developing leaders through athletics. Well, we develop them through research to help build those innovative thinkers, those bold thinkers that are going to solve those problems for the future. And research is key and critical to that. In fact, we have so many patents now. It is incredible. We have actually a wall in Fairchild Hall, our academic building, of patents that our cadets and faculty have had attributed to them. It's absolutely amazing. And it's probably one of the biggest changes academically since I was a cadet, for sure, that has occurred here. The research opportunities are just tremendous. And it's across the board, military, civil, governmental. It's just tremendous. And we continue to move it forward. And people want our cadets. They want them to come and be a part of their research activities because they're so good, they're so innovative, and they're so ready to look for new ways to do things. And I think it's incredible. It's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. And I actually have to add that when a classmate of mine, Rajachari, just spent 6 months at the International Space Station. So when you say that our graduates are in high demand, I mean, when you see a graduate go on to do something like that, how does that make you feel?
It makes us proud. And he was a great example. He actually called our cadets from the space station and talked to them, inspired them to continue to do great things. That was one of our warfighter talks that we had, to be able to talk to a graduate in space, to inspire our cadets, not just our guardians who are going to go to the Space Force, but all of our cadets. So, and we have grads doing things in all segments of the, I'll say, research community that continue to inspire. So it really is fantastic where we've gone with our research activities.
So you mentioned a wall of patents. How many are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, I'll say it used to be a plaque of patents with just a few, but now we have 48 patents attributed to the Air Force Academy. And we put all 48 of them on a wall with a brief description of what they are and who own those patents. It's amazing. 48 patents here. Cadets, staff, faculty. Pretty incredible. I'm proud of that.
Do you see the Space Force, newly developed, there's rumors about the command moving to Alabama. How do you see the Academy's role in developing future Space Force officers?
Well, we meet the requirements of the Space Force, and they tell us sort of what kind of officer that they're looking for, what majors that they want, primarily in the STEM areas of our education. But basically, those 96 cadets that they bring in as commissioned officers, they interview every one of them. They are looking for specific people, specific skill sets, and we understand what they're after. So in our developmental opportunities, we really do focus on the requirements of the Space Force and what they're going to need to move to the future. So I think the Space Force has just inspired a lot of our cadets to move forward, and we don't have a shortage of people volunteering to go to the Space Force, for sure. And the Space Force is very pleased with the products that they've gotten over the last few years, and we just keep building on that. And we work very closely with the Space Force. In fact, we have an element here that is a Space Force element that helps us as sort of liaisons to ensure that we're doing the things that the Space Force needs. And I'll tell you one quick story. Some cadets, the cadets still do Spirit missions, and one of the classic Spirit missions is to take the SUPS hat and put it on a flagpole. If you could do that, you did something right. And then the really bold cadets used to take it and put it on the chapel spire. That was pretty incredible. Well, the chapel's in a box right now, so they couldn't put it on the chapel. So one of the cadets said, "Hey, what if we took the SUPS hat and put it in space?" And a group of cadets said, "Oh, that's a good idea." They did it. They took my hat. I don't know how they got it, and they connected it to a weather balloon, and they put it 108,000 feet in the air, right at the upper boundaries of the atmosphere, took pictures of it, and then brought it back down. And that's a Spirit mission, right? Forget about a flagpole. They put it up to the upper boundaries of the atmosphere. That's what our cadets do. Somebody says, "Hey, I got an idea," and they get after it. I was so proud. When they brought it back, they presented it to me, and I was like, "You did what?" And I saw the pictures. It was incredible. And the best thing about it, they were all 4 degrees. These were freshmen that did it. And it was astounding.
It's pretty impressive.
It was. So
You talked about the popularity of the Space Force. It actually ties to some of the pilot shortage problems that we're also having in the Air Force. Do you feel that now the popularity of the Space Force is pulling away from those who want to go on and become pilots in the United States Air Force?
Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to get every cadet that wanted to fly a pilot slot, even with the large demand that we have. Pilot, being a rated crew member in our Air Force, is still high demand. We're producing as much as the Air Force needs, and we're getting qualified people in to do that. So the Space Force hasn't detracted from that. It is 100. We're putting 96 into the Space Force every year. So that does kind of pull some that would want to probably go into rated career fields. But we still have such a high demand from our cadets to go into rated fields that we don't have a shortage there. Hopefully, the Air Force will increase the demand, and we'll be able to get more of our cadets that want to have rated opportunities into those fields. But right now, we're able to produce what the Air Force needs, and we have more volunteers than we have slots for it.
Thank you for your time, General Clark. I think this was really helpful. It was helpful for me personally as a graduate, and also I'm sure it answers a lot of questions for others watching today. So thank you.
No, I'm honored, and thank you for giving me this time and the opportunity. I really appreciate the AOG for pulling this together, and allowing us to have this time together. But I really do appreciate all of our alumni and the folks that are watching to, I would say, understand better our academy and understand where I'm coming from. And I want you to know that the goal is still the same. We are still here to develop leaders of character, to lead our Air Force and our Space Force, and that will never change. So thanks for taking the time today, and thank you, Heather, for your professionalism and for really volunteering to do this.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
As you likely know at this point, these conversations have been brought to you by the Association of Graduates and the Air Force Academy Foundation. We sincerely hope they've helped answer some of the questions that you might have had and are increasing your confidence in this important institution. We'd also like to thank General Clark for his honesty and for participating in bringing better clarity and understanding around these critical topics that impact us all.